All right, I'm going to try and do the four chords project and see how quickly I can do it. And if anybody hasn't been able to do it, here you go. I'm going to go ahead and start. I have a new session. I'm in the edit window. I'm going to make some tracks. I'm going to make 5 because that was the requirement. I'll leave them as mono, and I will leave them as instrument, or I'll change them to instrument. My first one, let's call it drums. I'll hit next. Let's call it bass. I'll hit next. Let's call it keys, because I don't want to be stuck to a piano. Pad and a lead. All right, let's insert in our drums, expand. I'm not even going to get to the drums right now. The hardest part for people seems to be drawing in the chords. All right, so let's start with a piano. I know it says keys, but it doesn't matter, and I keep saying that. Let's use the rock piano. You can maybe hear my chord charts here. I'm going to go to my MIDI editor. I'm going to click my pencil over here in the tracks column to keys. So now it's a keyboard or piano. I meant to change that. Not that it matters, but I'm going to change it. Let's see. I'm going to start off with the A minor chord. And, you know, the numbers C is 3, C, D, E, F, G, A. I don't want to start so close to the 4th octave, so I'm just going to drop down. A. Same note. So I'm going to draw in this instance, just for the sake of the demonstration, 1 measure, 4 beats of the A note. And then I see the second note is C. The third note is D. I'm sorry, the third note is E. And I'm going to go ahead and draw an octave of A. Next chord is C. I'm going to stick with that pattern. C, E, G, and C again. I'm going to open that one up so it's even. Flip my paper over and go to the E minor. All right, so E minor, E, G, B, and then E again. All right, so this is just an ascending pattern so far. And then I gotta get to my D. I'm gonna go down to D. Then this is the only black key in the whole song. That is F sharp or G flat, depending how you look at it. Then A. Also, what makes this a little bit easier, if you don't notice, is the darker gray lines and the lighter gray lines. You see the two light ones, that's because there are no sharps or flats between E and F, and then down here as well between B and C. So that kind of helps you find your notes if you need that help. And I'm going to hit an octave of D. All right, we have 4 chords. I'm going to leave those in for now. For the bass, this is kind of a trick. It's cheap, it's down and dirty, but it allows you to understand the relationship. Actually, forget the tricks. No tricks. No horse and dog and pony show. I'm going to go back to the media editor. I should probably put an instrument in my bass track. I'm going to choose a synth bass, and I shouldn't spend a whole lot of time on this, so I'm just going to choose the clicky D and B. Okay. Go to my MIDI editor, make sure my bass is selected. All right, so the easiest way for me to do this is just I'm going to look at what notes are being played in my piano, and I'm going to choose the lowest note for each chord. That's the root. That's what we've kind of been talking about. And I'm going to go an octave below. So I'm starting on A for the piano. I'm going to go find A an octave lower. And I could draw this out just like that, but I kind of want the bass to do something slightly different. So I'm going to draw in actually, let me see if I can come up with something even more interesting. Nah. Let's see. I won't spend much time. What about that? Okay, I'm going to live with that. I'm going to take this same pattern. If you're wondering, my grid is set up to 16ths, so that's 3 16th notes, 3 16th notes, 4 16th notes, and what, 6 16ths? And if you do that math, 3 plus 3 is 6, plus 4 is 10, 2, 4, 6, bah! I caught myself, I'm in trouble. 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 16th, 16ths. There you go. Kaufman. My next chord is C. I'm going to stick with this pattern. I've highlighted these notes. I've hit Option, click, and drag to duplicate. Oops. I mean Option, click, drag, and let go to duplicate. And I'm going to take these up to E. And then I'm going to go down to D. Let's see what that sounds like. All right, let's leave it at that. All right, some drums. Let's put in a drum set. I'm feeling electro-y today, so I'm going to choose the electro kit. Go to my drums. I don't need to see the bass or anything. I might like to see the bass just to see this pattern to decide if I'm going to do anything with it to support it in the kick drum. Right now, I'm just going to put the kick on 1 and 3. And then I'm going to use this snare drum, and I'm going to put it on 2 and 4. That sounds weird. I just want to hear my drums. All right, it sounds weird because I have this different kind of pattern in the bass. So if I really wanted to, I kind of want to align my kicks with the bass, and it would probably sound all right. Except I don't really want that, so I don't know what I'm going to do. The other thing that's happening here is that this kick, it actually has a note attached. It's kind of got a note to it. So that pitch, I think, is battling the bass a little bit. So I'm going to change this up again. be okay if I didn't just hate the sound so much. All right, that's a little bit better. I want to go back to 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, that'll work. And then I kind of want to put, I want to do this 4 on the floor thing. So I'm going to take my kick drums, raise their velocities to be equal. I can bring down those snare drums. All right, cool. And then hi-hats. By putting a hi-hat in, I'm double clicking here. I could pick this up and do it. Same thing. That is kind of a very typical drum beat. But when you get into the house thing or the electronic thing, you often won't have, you'll have some other type of sound on the downbeats. So I'm going to choose every downbeat and see if I can find something quickly. A little tambourine. All right, whatever. We're going to go with it. I'm going to come back to the edit window, and I'm going to duplicate. So again, I'm using my grabber tool to select the entire clip. I'm not trying to do that by selecting. And I'm going to duplicate this. The requirement of this project is to have 2 measures of drums. Right now I only have 1 measure, and in my second measure I need to differentiate a little bit. So put a second hi-hat in there. Ooh, ooh. All right, good enough for the moment. I'm going to take these 2, duplicate them, just so I have this symmetrical kind of 4-measure situation going on. See what it sounds like. My bass is too loud. I'm going to go directly to my mix window and adjust some volumes. All right, I'm back. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my keys track. I'm going to hit Option, click, and drag. I don't have a sound, so it's grayed out. I'm going to put in expand, and I am going to put in a pad. The sign pad number 13, safe. Doesn't offend anybody. All right. Now what? So another kind of just cheap way, and I've talked about this before, is that, or with a number of you, is that when you're making your choices of notes, if you don't know what the heck you're doing, knowing what notes are in the chord will at least give you, in this situation, 4 notes that are guaranteed to work. Not that those are the only 4 notes that would work within these chords, but if you don't know what you're doing, you don't necessarily have a trained ear to hear bad notes, this will work. So I'm going to take this track and duplicate it again. I'm going to put in the instrument, and I'm going to change that to a lead of some kind. vintage synth lead. I don't even know what that sounds like. But I'm going to go back in, and instead of taking the lowest note, that was, we've done that before. I'm going to choose kind of randomly which notes to play and which notes not, or which ones to keep. And we'll see what that sounds like. Totally random. Bring that down, because it doesn't need to be in my face. All right, I have 4 measures. I have 5 instruments. I've been doing this for 16 minutes. All right. Now, I want this to be... Actually, I'm going to try something since I have the time. I don't know why I have the time. I just feel like I do. I'm going to take each of this piano thing, and it's just a little boring at this point, playing out for 4 beats. I'm going to change it up so it's only playing... sustaining for 2/16 notes, and I'm going to see if I can come up with a cool pattern. No, that was not it. Let's see. All right, I think I might be able to live with that. See what I'm doing? Skipping a 16th note, then there's 2 16th notes. And I'm just kind of trying to get... I'd like to sustain this one a bit longer. Duplicate or stretch that out to be twice as long, which is 4 16th notes, or 1 beat, but it's starting on the 3rd 16th note of beat 3. Okay, I think that's going to work. I just realized what I could have looked at. Let me just double check that I'm right before I say anything about it. Yeah, so it turns out that the feel that I was going for in the piano, I hadn't even thought about it, is really the same as the bass. So you can see that the hit of the piano is lined up with the bass, the hit of the piano is lined up with the bass, etc., etc. One last thing I'm going to do is this is stepping it up. No, not yet. I'm going to duplicate everything. So I've said before with you guys that I like to work vertically before I think about, well, where am I going to go with this song? So now that I've done that, and I want your song to be about 2 minutes long, I am hitting Command D. Now, instead of a loop, I have, a song with 0 arrangement. So I actually want to, let's see, I don't want my drums to start out, and I don't think I want them for the first 8 measures. I'll drop the bass, and I will drop the lead. I'll play it every once in a while. I don't want it all the time. think I'm getting ready to try something. All right, right here at measure 21, I'm going to drop all of the drums except for the kick and hi-hat. All right. And just because I always say this, I don't need to do all that editing in the MIDI editor because I've done it. I'm going to go back, drop the bass. All right, let's see if I can do something. All right, starting at measure 25. A little extra in this tutorial, which is starting at measure 25 for 4 measures. I'm going to get rid of the hi-hats. I'm going to let the kick go quarter notes for 1 measure. I'm going to do 8th notes, 16th notes, and 30 seconds. So this is kind of like a drop, except it builds pretty quickly. And one thing I've learned, not from doing it, I never claimed that EDM is my thing, but I have found that drops that take their time are cooler. All right, so we have quarter notes, we have 8th notes, we have 16th notes. How are we going to get 30-second notes? We need to change our grid to 30-second notes. Another little trick, if you click and hold on this pencil tool and choose the line tool, you can draw in values that are the grid. Bring those up, and let's see what this is going to sound like. I'm a little scared. You get the idea. Maybe not the coolest version of it. Let's put it on the snare drum anyways. There you go. I'm going to call that a day. Actually, I'm going to put in my master fader, which I should have done at the beginning. I'm going to see that it's in the red, which is bad. Oh, it's not that bad. All right, I'm just going to finish this off for people who haven't come to class. I'm going to fade. So this line represents volume. And at around, a couple measures before the end, I'm going to hit Command and click, or you can just use the grabber tool. And before the music ends, I'm going to click again and drag all the way down so that it fades out before the music ends. I'm zoomed so far out, this is a lot longer than I expected. Let's start our fade here. Bring that back up to 0. Oops. There we go. All right, that's fairly natural. One last thing I like to do. On the master fader bus, we're going to go to our insert, multi-channel plugin, dynamic, and you should find a plugin called Maxim. Maxim is a limiter. What a limiter does is a threshold-based dynamic plugin, which a threshold means that the effect does not work until that threshold is met. In this case, it's an amplitude-based threshold or volume, When our volume gets to a certain threshold, the limiter will start to do what it does. And what a limiter does is it pushes from the top only. It limits the volume. By doing that, when we create a ceiling, in this case, and in general cases, I say of negative 0.3, it says there will be no sound that gets, or no volume that gets past 0.3. If anything's trying to get that loud, we're going to start to attenuate. Attenuation means to kind of push down, to keep down. So what we do is we don't actually set any threshold yet. We play from a loud section in our track. It's going to do some analysis. I'll come back and talk to you about what we do next. All right, so I got this little pot belly thing here. These are my loudest volumes. I'm going to bring my threshold down, not so that everything turns orange here, but maybe just that top little few bits. And I'm going to put the bypass on, which is going to turn off this effect. I'm going to press play, then I'm going to pop this on and off so you can hear the difference. What it should sound like is everything gets louder, but nothing gets into the red. So you can look down here as well in terms of seeing where the meters are on the master fader. And you see just a little bit of this orange. If I pull this down, I'm afraid to hear what this sounds like. You're going to see a lot more attenuation, but it may also distort. And then, since I have your attention, I'm going to use the selector tool. I'm going to highlight from the end of my fade to the beginning of the track to establish the length of the bounce that I'm going to create. I'm going to go to File, Bounce to Disk. I want file type wave. I don't need to add an MP3. Actually, go ahead and add an MP3. If you want to email this to yourselves, you can. Format, interleaved, which is stereo, Pro Tools version of stereo. We want this to be 16-bit. We're creating CD quality, the standard for CD compact disc audio, 16-bit 44.1 kilohertz sample rate. We don't need any of these other items. We don't need to put this in our iTunes library or import it into the session. That's the name of my project. I'm going to leave it at that. This is just showing you the hierarchy of where the bounce is going. It's going into the Project 1 test folder that's on my desktop into a folder called bounced files. If this is not pressed, the offline button, the bounce will be in real time. It's better at this point that it's not. So I'm going to just leave that offline. I'm going to hit bounce. This is for the MP3 encoding. You can put your name in there if you want. You don't need to. And it is bouncing, okay, at around 20 times real time. I'm going to save my work. I'm going to quit Pro Tools. I'm going to find where that went. Who knows? It's right here. All right, I look in the Bounce Files folder. There's my project. I can listen to that. That's coming out of the speakers in the room. All right, let's finish this thing off and turn it in. I find the audio production share drive. I open it up. I'm going to drag my folder into or onto the Dropbox until it kind of lights up. I'm going to let go. You're going to have a little sign that says, are you sure you want to do this? You can't get it back if you do. And you're going to say yes. There it is. Okay. A+. Peace.